Hello and welcome to Pylon to Pylon podcast. I'm your host Brett Landmeyer,
And I'm Kevin Brigman.
and today we got a fun episode planned for you. We're gonna start with some breaking news. Just came out. DJU just got drafted in the 20th round by the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I think that's good for the kid.
Yeah, give him some options. We've seen it before with some QBs in college football. We'll see how he does in the season, because he's had some ups and downs, so maybe he needs the options. Who knows? But
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if this season is anything based off last season, 100%, you should probably try baseball.
I mean, see Kyler Murray now. Maybe he should have went to baseball. We'll see.
Yikes. All right. On to our next topic. Bit of a trouble going on up there in Evanston this past week. A story from Daily Northwestern broke that has ultimately ended up with head football coach Pat Fitzgerald being fired. This comes as a surprise, a little out of nowhere. Although Northwestern was 1-11 last season, so maybe a play to get them out. But in the story, apparently multiple players have came out and said that they were being sexually assaulted and hazed from the upperclassmen. An act that was called running, which is when freshmen are kidnapped and then put into the locker room and then dry humped. And yeah, not the best look for a program at all. You don't want to see that anywhere. New Mexico State University just had to fire their men's head basketball coach earlier this year over a similar problem. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Pat Fitzgerald's departure?
I mean, extremely sensitive topic, especially this close to the firing. I think that there's a stigma around college football and just football in general that definitely doesn't help when it comes to stuff like this, because it's an environment that definitely can breed this kind of behavior, just the nature of the sport and the nature of the culture and everything. And that's not to knock down the nature of the culture, because it obviously has upsides and downsides, just like anything else. I think it's a bit surprising that it was this early that they fired him. I was expecting maybe a longer investigation, but the timing is really rough for them.
Yeah, they did suspend him. They did suspend him 2 weeks at first, and then 48 hours later he was fired. So they probably, I guess, might have found some evidence.
Yeah.
That could have, but it comes as a complete shock. Northwestern's program has always seemed pretty buttoned up, and you wouldn't really expect.
Seems like he has a tight ship up there.
And yeah, you wouldn't expect Pat Fitzgerald to really be a part of this. So this comes as a shock because there was a time where, as a Bears fan, we needed a head coach, and Pat Fitzgerald was having some good years up there in Northwestern. I might have said his name a couple times, saying I wanted him to coach the Bears.
And now the Bears.
But yeah, now not really as much. I don't know if he gets. Do you think he even gets another shot again here?
I think down the line he could. I feel like everything's very behind a screen right now, or behind a curtain. I feel like a lot of the stuff hasn't necessarily come out, or a lot of the details haven't been there. I think it's very possible that they may have just decided that either whether or not he was involved or knew about anything, they're probably just going to fire him either way. Because it's I would not be surprised if that was the decision coming out of them, because they have to do something about it at least. And that seems to be probably the easiest decision. Not to say that is a good idea, is to just automatically fire the head coach. I feel bad for Fitzgerald if he had nothing to do with any of this and he's just getting the brunt of it. Unfortunately, it's what you sign up for as a head coach because you're responsible for those kids, especially in college. So I think maybe down the line, couple of years, if a spot opens up, we've seen controversial people get new jobs after a little bit of time. I know
Rick Pitino.
I was about to say I forget his name, but as soon as you said that, I was like, "That's him." What's the offensive coordinator now at not Ole Miss? I don't know why I'm thinking Ole Miss. Where did he just get a job at?
Oh, I know. I don't know who you're talking about, but another good one, like Hugh Freeze a couple years ago. He had some issues, and now he's the head coach at Auburn.
Yeah.
But, I agree with you. I think a job could potentially down the line come back to him. It just was kind of shocking because Pat Fitzgerald is Northwestern.
Oh, jeez.
The jury
might as well own the school.
Yeah, it was. He played there from 1993 to 1996. Was a 2-time All-American. Made the College Football Hall of Fame. He's been coaching there for 17 years now, and that was all taken away from him in 1 week, and that's crazy to see. Defensive coordinator David Braun is expected to take over for the time being. There hasn't been much said of whether or not they are looking for a new coach, but we made a list here with some potential replacements for Northwestern, but just to start with David Braun in general. He was a defensive coordinator for North Dakota State and was hired at the same position at Northwestern earlier this year. Now he's taking over the program for the time being. I am kind of expecting them to go out of, what am I thinking?
Out of organization.
Out of the organization, try to bring in a new culture. You kind of want to clean that up a little bit, I'm sure. And so, but David Braun did just get there this year, so he's definitely a very solid option. But some other ones we got for you?
We also got Willie Fritz, head coach of Tulane. We've seen how Tulane has really stepped into the conversation past couple of years, coming out of nowhere. Had a great season last season. Played a hell of a bowl game against USC. So I think it's not uncommon to see a head coach in this position from a smaller school get the nod and get the position here at more of a household name, I guess. I would say Northwestern has kind of fallen off as far as success-wise, but they're still up there as far as the household names. They're still in the Big Ten. But you saw it with Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. He went going from bringing that Cincinnati program out of the dirt, and now he's bringing in the Wisconsin Badgers with a whole new look for them. So Fritz in this situation could do the same thing. I think Braun honestly could be a good idea for him. But the next guy we also got on the list is David Shaw from Stanford.
Yeah, David Shaw was head coach at Stanford from 2011 to 2022. Had a very positive record. Made 8 straight bowl games from 2011 all the way to 2018, but hasn't made one since and has had a losing record since as well. But, you kind of just think Stanford and Northwestern are very similar programs, but when you look, they're both great academic institutions. So the David Shaw fit going from Stanford to Northwestern, I feel like could make perfect sense. Watching the All-Star game here, and
damn, Ale just went on 1-0. But
Anyway,
yeah, I think Shaw, as you said, he's dealing with the same kind of students already at Stanford. Same not same, but similar demographic, really, I guess, for students. It does not look well that he hasn't really had a winning record as of recently. But he's up there. I think he fits the vision for what a Northwestern head coach looks like. But if they were to kind of change that vision a little bit, change the culture, change the environment, one opportunity they could do is hire Brian Hartline on. It hurts to say for me. I don't want to ever see that man go because he's done some wonderful things at the wide receiver position and really the rest of the offense, hopefully even more than that eventually at Ohio State. But he's a big name right now that a lot of people are looking could be a next head coach if Northwestern wants to, kind of similar to Luke Fickell, change the environment, change the culture, change the identity. They could bring in Hartline, maybe more of an offensive mind into this organization.
yeah, Brian Hartline would obviously be the number one choice in this situation. The receivers coming out of Ohio State are absolute monsters, and he's just making his way up to offensive coordinator now, and it looks like he is going to be in play for a big-time job here coming soon, and Northwestern could get on that right now, but I really don't think Brian Hartline is going to leave this year.
No.
I think he just got the offensive coordinator and play calling duties. I think he's going to want to compete for a national championship this year rather than go through the process of rebuilding a program.
Yeah, I think he wants to add to his resume a little bit more before he takes on something like that. I know he also really enjoys it at Ohio State, so he might just stay there just because he likes being there, at least for the time being, although I definitely see him getting a head coaching job down the line. And it kind of doesn't fit. I feel like Northwestern is very defensive oriented. If they wanted to stay with that, they would hit somebody else or hire somebody else. Sorry.
Yep.
But going forward, we have the Toledo head coach up next, Jason Candle. He's done a great job with Toledo. He's in a smaller conference, so it's one of those, again, similar to Fritz, could be jumping up to a bigger level. What do you think about it?
Well, Candle is 6 for 8 in making bowl games in his career. The Toledo's went 11-1 last year. I think if there was a guy to make the bump, I think it could be Jason Candle. A little action in the Big Ten never hurt. And yeah, he's got a positive record there. Could be due for a coaching line soon.
Yeah, I always think it's impressive when you can take a smaller team inside of a state that has pretty much a dominant
Is it
recruiting.
Toledo in Ohio?
In Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to be dominated recruiting-wise for Ohio players by Ohio State. And if you could still create a winning team in that same geographic area, that's pretty impressive. That's like going down to Georgia and creating a stacked roster and dominating, even when you have Georgia taking all the Georgia players.
Yeah.
So that says something about Candle there.
Next, we got Jesse Minter. He's a defensive coordinator at Michigan right now. Again, we were talking Northwestern, more of a defensive-oriented school. If they wanted to keep kind of a defensive feel, I feel like just going DC at Michigan there. Great idea. They're ruling the Big Ten right now. Keep the Big Ten in-house.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they wanted to go defensive-oriented, which seems like it's kind of the push for a lot of Big Ten teams right now, Michigan's really pushing defense first. I think the Coach Rule hire at Nebraska is pushing defense first. Luke Fickell's a bit of an outlier there. But I think Big Ten's definitely focusing on defense right now. So Jesse Minter would be a great hire. I think he's kind of a similar situation to Brian Hartline, though, just on the opposite side of the ball. I think he wants to maybe add to his resume a little bit. He's not necessarily newer, but He hasn't had a ton of time yet at Michigan, so we'll see if he wants to stay there. I personally think maybe the top runners right now are Fritz, and then possibly Hartline. But again, we said we haven't talked about that, or we don't really see that a whole lot. But then maybe a dark horse, someone people forget about, could fit into Northwestern's identity pretty well. Big Coach O, the old LSU coach.
Yeah,
Gotta love him.
Yeah, I mean, instead of saying "Go Tigers," it's "Go Cats." You know, it's much easier, and I think he brought
Staying in the Cat family.
Yeah, he brought LSU from a program that was on a downfall. They had just gotten caught with allegations as well, and were in need of a culture change. And Coach O came in there and won a national championship in his second year, and I think that could be a culture that you could bring to Northwestern, hopefully to get things back on track. It is a risky hiring, 100%, but I think there is an argument for it. Their defensive coordinator, though, kind of seems like, if I had to guess, they might just roll with him. But if they did go another route, wanted to bring in a different guy, why not bring any of those guys in?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they wanted to go big or go home in this situation, Coach O might be the perfect guy for that. I don't see it happening just because there are some rough edges around Coach O's identity as far as like through the eyes of the media and everything. So it would be kind of bad timing to bring him on. I don't think the media would necessarily look at Northwestern with a good look in that situation. So I don't know if they'll do it. But I do think it would be a big shakeup for them and could possibly turn that program around like he did with LSU, because Northwestern's also down right now. But I agree. I think Braun they'll at least stick with for the season. And I don't think Northwestern was expected to do good either way. But if they still do terrible, I think they'll probably maybe reconsider and then move on from there.
Now into our next part, a little bit of a positive subject. Kevin and I are going to be talking about our top 5 favorite players watching in college football growing up. It's going to be a fun one. So,
yeah,
Kevin, you want to start with yours?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and just put it out there that I was an Ohio State fan before I was a college football fan, so it's gonna be a little Ohio State heavy. I apologize, but these are the guys that really got me excited about college football at Ohio State, which eventually got me excited about
Made
college
you look
football.
forward to Saturdays more.
Yeah, I started watching them, and I was like, oh shit, there's like 7 other games I could watch today. But without further ado, I got an honorable mention here. Maybe lower on the list than people would expect it for me, but Zeke was a monster to watch. The way that really I think what put him definitely on this list for me as an honorable mention was how he played against Alabama. Just running straight through the heart of the South in that game in the college football semifinal. That got me stoked because I'm not a huge Alabama fan, and I just loved seeing them like fall to Zeke. So that whole season was pretty incredible. But to go on to number 5, I got Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football. I don't know how like anybody didn't get excited about him when he was playing. Like he just made play after play and made it look effortless. It was insane.
It was awesome to watch Johnny Manziel, that is correct. On my list, at my honorable mention spot, I got Lamar Jackson. Watching Action Jackson at Louisville, he owned the field. He was the Mike Vick of my era. You always heard these glory stories of how Michael Vick was so good back in the day, and I felt like growing up I was just looking for a new Michael Vick to come, and we got Lamar Jackson, and another good part is he's not a piece of shit to dogs, so it's easy to root for Lamar Jackson. He's the fastest QB I've ever seen, and his arm talent is very underrated. He makes a lot of good throws, and he can throw on the run, and he's just such a threat. It seemed like he was so dominant at Louisville. And at my number 5, I got Johnny Manziel as well. Just an absolute improviser on the field. It just seemed like there was never a dead play when he was out there. He was consistently creating something. He was running around frantically and then would just find someone open, and it was a thrill to watch him play college football, and he was one of the players that made me love the game, and one of the smartest running quarterbacks I've ever seen.
Yeah, Manziel was just like magical out there. The stuff he did, I don't know.
I'm also a fan of personalities, and I like guys who play with a little swagger on the field. I think, you know, for sports, you're meant to have fun. You're meant to show up. You're meant to show off. You know, you got fans there. You got to keep an image, because that can do a lot for your career just by creating a face to your name and a personality to yourself. And I enjoyed Money Manziel. I thought it was a great era. He's the only freshman to win Heisman also, which has been awesome to see.
Yeah, I think people forget about like the whole locker room culture aspect of sports, because it plays a bigger role than people expect. People think that like on-field play and like skill and talent is really like everything that decides it, but when you get a guy like Manziel that's just going to bring the energy to every single game, you're going to take players and elevate their talent every game you go into. It's insane. But to move on from there, I'm in my number 4 spot. I got another Ohio State player, another Ohio State running back, J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins, I always loved watching run. He seemed like he could just do like anything as a runner. We just didn't need any other running back when he was running. And I have to admit that it gives me a little bias, because I would hear Gus Johnson go JK all day, and it would just get me hyped as fuck. So shout out to Gus Johnson for that one.
Shout out Gus Johnson in general.
Literally, best
announcer in sports.
Oh, 100%. I love that man. But so he's a large reason why J.K. Dobbins is so high in this list. But he was also a great running back too, so you can't not to knock J.K. Dobbins down.
At my 4th spot, I got Justin Fields. I am a Bears fan, but I was on the Justin Fields train way before that. I was very excited to see Justin Fields get drafted to the Bears. Actually shed tears, if you were wondering. Justin Fields had a 20-2 record in college and just was an amazing pocket passer at the time. I think a lot of people now kind of just saw him as a runner, but now he's people are just wait for this year when he becomes a prolific pocket passer with the ability to run in his back pocket.
I know. I'm excited for this year. I think Justin Fields, I love that everybody's calling him a running back, because I think that he's just internalizing all that, and he's just going to go off this season, especially with DJ Moore.
Give him some receivers, yeah.
Give him some receivers, a halfway decent offensive line, and he'll show you what he could do. He's nuts. All right, going on to number 3 on this list, a recent player, another Ohio State player, of course, for me. Jackson Smith-Njigba, JSN, he was just too smooth with it every single catch. I feel like you just lob a ball up to JSN and somehow he found a way to catch it, and then he would add on 15 yards after that, and then you forgot about the fact that he was the number 3 wide receiver behind Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. I'm really sad that we never got to see him play his junior year. I think he would have had a magical season last year. Marvin Harrison Jr. stepped up, thankfully.
Yeah. Before the talk of Marvin Harrison has taken over, the talk of JSN was real. There was talks of him being a top 10 player drafted in the offseason. Even I saw some top 5s for him, but didn't have the best junior year to back that up. So that didn't happen for him, but yeah, when I think of Jackson Smith-Njigba, I just think of the Rose Bowl game against Ohio State where he had the 4 TDs, where he just played one of the best receiving games I've ever seen in my life, and the connection with C.J. Stroud, it was there, and he just torched Utah.
I always think of the Rose Bowl game, but I always think of I remember his first ever touchdown was actually, I believe, from Fields. And he had this just insane catch in the back of the end zone where he barely got 1 foot down. And speaking of Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt were like speechless because everyone thought he was out of bounds at first, and they looked at the replay and they were both like, "Wait, holy fuck, he was in!" Like, holy shit. And I think that's where people started putting eyes on Jackson Smith-Njigba because you were like, he can make catches like that? Yeah. My God. But yeah, he's a special player. He's going to be great in Seattle.
Number 3, for me, I got a team that I very much enjoyed watching growing up. Rooted for them for a very long time, always. Partially jerseys, but it was the Oregon Ducks with Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota was just, a great character. Very well-spoken off the field. He was a good person I felt like to look up to, and on top of that, just ran the greatest offense I might have ever seen with that Oregon offense. They just ran so fast. It was just so electric to watch. They could get down the field in less than a minute and put up 7 on you, and Marcus Mariota was a major part of that, along with being a great runner. I do love my running quarterbacks, and Marcus Mariota was, at the time, one of the best at that. And it broke my heart to see them lose to Ohio State. I won't lie. You mentioned Zeke earlier, and he also ran down Oregon's throat there. And that was not pleasant to watch. But, yeah, Marcus Mariota, definitely a big part of my love for college football. Was one of my first favorite players growing up. In fact, I rooted for the Titans for a couple of years. It's my second favorite team because he was a QB there. And I still hope he comes through in the NFL too.
And he might make some strides this year with the Falcons getting Bijan Robinson. Drake London is kind of, I think, might have somewhat of an outbreak season because he was injured a little bit last year.
I think they might be looking to turn to Ritter now, but
that's fair.
I hope to see him get another opportunity again.
Yeah, I'd like to see him. I know he's in that documentary that's coming up with Mahomes and Kirk Cousins. But to go on to number 2, and my number 2 spot, not an Ohio State player, an old guy, probably a lot of people have never heard of, Jordan Lynch, former quarterback of Northern Illinois University. I think this was like the first point I really started watching college football when I don't even know how old at this point, but I think middle school around. And I just remember NIU kind of getting good out of nowhere. And I remember watching my parents, because they both went to NIU, I should say. My parents got just really excited about everything, and they were watching the games, and they were getting stoked. And it just made me stoked. I was like, this is sick. They're excited. I was like, holy shit. Yeah. And it was like Jordan Lynch show. He was going off. Unfortunately, they got destroyed by Florida State in the Orange Bowl. Yeah. That was a bit crushing. And I think Jordan Lynch does like insurance or something now. But shout out to Jordan Lynch. That man got me watching college football, got me excited about it. Love him. Great guy, great quarterback, all-time NIU legend.
Yeah, when I think old school NIU, I definitely think Jordan Lynch. I think he was in the Heisman voting that one year even.
Yeah, I think so.
He was that good. Just tearing up the action. And, I agree with you. Jordan Lynch was exciting as hell to watch, for sure. At my number 2 spot, I got Joe Burrow. Watching Joe Burrow at LSU that one season was magical. I have never seen a quarterback just look so in tune with an offense. He did have just absolute weapons all around him, which helped out greatly, but it just never seemed like anyone could stop him. He is the best looking quarterback prospect I had ever seen going into the NFL. I thought that the Bengals, when he got drafted, I was like, okay, the Bengals just won themselves a Super Bowl. At some point, Joe Burrow is going to win a Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he broke the record for 60 touchdowns in the 2019 season. That record's now been broken by Bailey Zappi. I think it was Bailey Zappi. Yeah, Bailey Zappi broke it. But yeah, that LSU team is the best college football team I've ever seen. That might be a discussion for another day, but him being the captain of that offense definitely was awesome to see. And yeah, he's my second favorite player.
Yeah, I mean, that offense was insane. If you look at, like, national championship winners of the last, I think it's like 20-ish years, and you just compare all the defenses in that case, you see how, like, I don't want to say that LSU's defense was bad that year, because that would be the understatement of the century there. But comparing it to all the other national championship defenses of recent years, they definitely had lower rankings compared to the other ones, and Joe Burrow made up for it in, like, major ways, just willing that team and that offense to an insane year. But to go on to our final ones, our number one guy that was mentioned earlier, back to an Ohio State guy, Justin Fields. Absolutely love him. As we said, he's going to go off this year with the Bears. I was so excited when I heard that the Bears traded up and got Fields. I was hoping they would, but knowing the Bears, I was like, there's no way that they're going to trade up and get Justin Fields. They're probably going to draft some, like, bum QB from a school that, like, doesn't compete at all and be like, yeah, he's the next GOAT. He's going to come out of nowhere and be amazing.
Started only 13 games in college.
Literally just another Mitch Trubisky is what I was expecting. But then we got Justin Fields, and I was like, man, this team finally has a future. Yeah. And we'll see where it goes from here, but I think Fields kind of blows up this year, puts his name into. I could definitely see him being in the MVP conversation this year.
Yeah, I mean, all the hope for it. That would be awesome to see. My number one, I told you I like personalities, so this might not be the most popular take, but Baker Mayfield was must-see TV. Every week he was putting on a show out there. Every year it seemed like he just would get better and better. Oklahoma was so fun to root for at that time. You want to talk bad defenses? Jesus. Oklahoma's defense was terrible, but Baker Mayfield could basically, however many points he wanted to put up, he put it up easy. He could do it so easily. He played with so much passion. It was just straight electricity watching him all the time. Sorry to bring this up, but him planting the flag at Ohio State might have been one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Threw for over 4,000 passing yards his senior year with a 43-6 touchdown to interception ratio. It was a Baker Mayfield show, and that is a big reason why I started getting into college football.
Yeah, I didn't really like Baker Mayfield for obvious reasons for a little bit. Those commercials, we talked about it before. I forget who we had the commercials with, but when it was in Cleveland.
Yeah, Hulu.
Was it Hulu? No, I think it was the ones where... Progressive, yeah. He was just, like, at home with Baker Mayfield, and he was at the Browns home stadium. Those made me like him a little bit more. Those were pretty funny. I thought he was a pretty funny guy in those. I hope he gets another opportunity with the Bucs. I think he could be a good QB somewhere in the NFL. I'm surprised the Rams got rid of him. I felt like he fit that system pretty well. But he was fun to watch. I can't deny that. He was fun to watch in college. He was electric. And as you said, as far as personality goes, he's up there.
Yeah, he's got the personality.
He's got the personality among any of them.
But yeah, guys, that's all we got for you today. I want to thank you all for listening, and leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want.
Make sure to comment any ideas you have for future episodes.
Yeah, any ideas in general, any tips for us. We'll take any sort of constructive criticism we can get here.
Right.
Whatever you guys want, we'd love to hear about it. So yeah, thanks. Follow us on Twitter at Pylon2, the number, Pylon Pod, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you later.